Hey there, we're the Westlaw Pirates and welcome to the show. We're here to share our thoughts on Northwestern athletics and college sports with thoughts and analysis from the visceral to the statistical. We run our tailgate with the red pirate flag flying high above as we give no quarter, especially the fourth. I'm Sam Walter.
I'm John Lacombe.
And I'm Eric Scouspo.
We got a lot to get into today. Some big news from basketball. Obviously, the start of lacrosse and softball. By the time you're listening to this, the softball season will have started, which is very exciting. And lacrosse is playing on Friday as well. But before we get into that, we don't do this very often. We don't navel gaze as much as I think other pods do. But we'd be remiss if we didn't just take a moment and, this is our 600th episode. So
it's bananas.
Which is absolutely wild. And yes, I know for episode 500 we had, Joe Spivak, aka Tank Ledger on. Unfortunately, we don't have him back tonight. It's going to be a regular old episode from us, but just still, gentlemen, 600 episodes, and that's not even counting all of our summer previews. In the first couple of years, we did like 2 episodes a week, and I called those like half episodes. Just a little bit here and there. I was looking through our archive, and yes, this is episode 600, but it looks like we have over 700 plus recorded episodes out there on the internet somewhere.
It's our 15th year doing this. It's wild, man.
It is.
It's funny because I talk at work or with friends. I mention that we do this, and people are like, "Wait, really? Weekly?" They're just, and I don't know. For me, I've always described it, and this is certainly underselling it a little bit, but I'm talking about spending time researching and talking about a thing that I love, that I would be spending a lot of time talking about, thinking about, reading about anyway, and catching up with my 2 buddies on a conference call once a week. It's it's a pretty great thing. It's made it easy over all these years.
Totally. I mean, it's been an amazing ride, and it's funny this particular week, right? Like, I think you're all conscious. A lot of you who know us, a lot of you who know how long we've done this. We've been fortunate to get into a place where like we've been able to interview Mark Jackson this year, and other people. You mentioned for 500, we had Joe Spivak, now WWE's Tank Ledger, on, and all these things. And then like this week, it was like between like work things people had going on and like family, and it's just like this is one of these weeks where we are very much just 3 guys with families and jobs running a podcast in our free time, just trying to find a way to make it work. And that's how we're ringing in 600. But it just kind of drums home, right, the fact that this is who we are, this is how we're trying to put it together. And nonetheless, for all this time, and like Sam said, for all of those files, we've been able to crank this out. I also was kind of waxing, reflective, waxing poetic on 600 because 500 was a jumping off point to so much ridiculousness, the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. So if you all remember the timestamp for episode 500 when we had Joe Spivak on, we had beaten Nebraska in Ireland, and then Northwestern had a bye week. And that's when we had Joe Spivak on. That is the precipice on which we were unknowingly standing at the time that we rang in 500. And then football did not win another game the rest of the year, and then everything that happened and what went into, and then Braun, and just we all know, like, that is the cliff we were on the edge of. And then on the flip side, we had no way of knowing that we were on the verge of the greatest basketball run in Northwestern history, right? 2 trips to the tournament, Boo Buie ascending to become the greatest Northwestern basketball player ever and one of the greatest Northwestern athletes ever. We were right on the verge of all that, and we had no way of knowing. It's been a hell of a 100 episodes, that's for sure.
And also, as we're kind of thinking back, I want to thank all of our listeners, every one of you who takes the time to listen to us. We're just 3 guys who love Northwestern. That's how this whole thing started, just because we wanted to talk about Northwestern and there just wasn't another place for it. But for all of our listeners, everyone who follows us on social media, everyone who's come up to us at tailgates, all the emails we've gotten back when we used to have a voicemail line for people to call in, which maybe 3 people did in the several years we had it.
mostly our buddy K-Hawk.
I was going to say, we know who you all are.
Tom McGrath was, I think, also another one. But we do this because, we hear from you guys that you like what we do. And thank you for listening. Thank you for enjoying us and, agreeing, disagreeing, whatever the case may be. Thanks for spending your time. I mean, there's a million pods out there, and thanks for clicking on ours.
There's a million pods, but there's pretty much only one Northwestern pod.
That's true. Yeah.
You may disagree with us. You may think we're idiots, but we're the only idiots talking about this stuff. So
for this
join
long,
the party, and
others we've seen a few pop up and down and here and there,
yeah.
But yeah.
It's funny.
I say that mostly just to be a little tongue in cheek, but we are here for if there's stuff you all want to hear about that we don't talk about or don't cover, like please let us know. We're happy to entertain it.
I had this rolling around in my head too that I don't think I've ever brought this up before, but it amuses me. And talking about like longtime listeners, people who've been part of like the West Lot Pirates community for a long time. And I don't think we're exactly reinventing the wheel to say that we live in an incredibly polarized society right now. And within the Northwestern, within this community, it's a tight community. Obviously, we know the sides that have been drawn and the problems that the fights that this community's had to work through and the struggles that this tight community that nonetheless represents many spectrums of thought have had to go through. And I was just laughing because I was thinking that you talking about our longest time listeners, people who have been with us for super long. And that group includes someone who held an incredibly high, very conservative position in the state of Texas, and also someone whose Twitter handle is Bisexual Chaos Goblin. And both of those people exist in our core listenership as two of our longest friends of the pod. And I'm just like, that is, we contain multitudes, we contain masses, this community, and very proud that we can represent all of you in that way.
So with that, I guess let's get to the meat of the pod here. Basketball. We talked a little bit. We talked a lot of softball last week. We said we'd come back and hit the hoops. Few things have happened, I think.
Yeah.
Is the roller coaster still on?
Yeah.
Most of them
it
not
sure
good.
is. It sure is. So I think when last we spoke, we had just beaten Indiana. Brooks Barnhiser broke his nose. Turned out that wasn't the only thing that was broken on him. Has he been playing on a broken foot for 5 games? I mean, and I get enough was enough. They had to shut him down. I guess he can now get his teeth fixed. He can schedule the tooth surgery in addition to whatever foot surgery he has to have. But my God, I mean, talk about just even before we get into the games. I mean, let's talk about Brooks Barnhiser and just how much he has meant to this program, how much he has given for this program. And you want a guy who's just lays it all on the line. That's Brooks Barnhiser. Just
get this guy one of the Chicago Skyline NU hockey jerseys, because if anybody's an honorary hockey player, holy moly.
Yeah.
This is the type of shit you hear about after the playoffs are over, and it's like, oh, Patrice Bergeron was playing with a broken rib for the last 2 months.
And a punctured lung, right?
Yeah.
God.
Yeah. This will be, Brooks will go down as one of the great beloved Northwestern athletes, right? When we mentioned earlier, Boo is arguably the greatest basketball player of all time. Obviously, no one's more beloved than Boo, but man, is Brooks right up there. There is not a Northwestern athlete who climbs into your heart and soul the way this guy has done. Obviously, Chris Collins was absolutely devastated having to announce that Brooks' career is done. Obviously, we're all devastated too. It's not just his contributions. It's not just that he was an integral player on 2 NCAA tournament basketball teams, and really coming into this season, one of the nation's best players. It's not just that he's provided big moments. You think of his shot in the FAU game at the end of regulation, just an all-timer in the NCAA tournament. We've talked about this before. It's the way he conducts himself and the way he understands the special place that Northwestern athletics holds within this university. It's the way you see Brooks engaging with the members of the Wild Side on his own in person, like he did at the end of last basketball season at the last home game. It is the way that he talks in press conferences about the connection he has between other Northwestern students and the way he sees them in classes and then goes to the games. It's everything you want. There have been few athletes I can name who get what Northwestern athletics should be within the context of the university better than Brooks Barnhiser. And I think above all of his accolades and accomplishments, that's going to be one of the things that's going to last. That's going to be a part of his legacy.
Yeah, I mean, just brutal to see his Northwestern career end like that. And, kind of spinning it forward, looking at, what this team is going to look like without him. I mean, yeah, we saw that early in the season, and it was definitely a bit of a struggle bus. Yeah, we won some games early, but it was trying to find that identity, and now deep in the heart of Big Ten season, where the possibilities for the NCAA tournament are just minimal. Even though we were on the I saw us on a list today as like needing help, but still on the list of possible NCAA tournament entries. I guess, if we get real hot and win a bunch of games, then sure. But just kind of seeing that without Barnhiser.
I was preparing to tweet like late in not late, like 3/4 of the way through the USC game. I was preparing to tweet a Monty Python meme. I'm not dead yet. And then everything that happened in the last quarter of that game happened, and I did not have the stomach nor heart to put that out into the world. But yeah, I mean, Northwestern's resume is deep. We're still a quad one team. Because they were hyping us up on the broadcast as like, if USC pulls this out, that's a quad one win. So, I mean, we're still in the mix for sure. But yeah, no Brooks. And then, we'll talk about Jalen Leach when we get there. But I think, from, John lauded, what Brooks means off the court amongst the students. And I think like on the court, he was not just the true leader of this team, but just a massive presence on both ends of the floor. We used to talk last year about how Brooks would go hunting the guy that skipped leg day. Mm-hmm. And even just watching him on the bench, like his physicality, his physical presence for a guy that, was in a boot almost all summer long, he's just imposing out there on the court. And I mean, there was all that hubbubaloo before the Maryland game of people reporting Brooks is in a boot, he's done for the year, and he went out and put up a double that night. He put up 20 points against Michigan the following game and 21 against Indiana the game after that. Obviously, things then, got worse against Illinois and Rutgers. He struggled in those games and then didn't play in Wisconsin, USC. But, like, this dude meant so much to the team. And there's we saw them step up against USC. And we saw some unheralded players step up. We saw some of the depth of the bench
finally
show out. And, yeah, and like, the upside there is that there are good players on this team. And there's going to be opportunities to get out there. That this is still a team with some real talent, and some of the other things that have been hounding them, Ty Berry's health, Matt Nicholson's health, have improved in recent weeks. I think you're also seeing Jalen Leach. Hopefully he's healthy again, but he's really come into his own. He's been arguably the best player on the court the last 3 or 4 games, and then Martinelli really well, we can get to that with the end of the USC game, but I agree with you, Sam. The road looked extraordinarily difficult with Brooks, and now it looks even more difficult. So mathematically not eliminated, but if we see the mettle, the tenacious and harrying defense, I mean, like it felt like chaos defense, like some of the hallmark of Veronica Burton and that Northwestern women's team several years ago, in the way that they were playing against USC and just shutting everything down and getting to every offensive rebound. If they can play like that most nights, it's going to give them a great opportunity to win some more games down the stretch and maybe make some noise in the Big Ten tournament. But we'll see. There's not really any mulligans left on the board, that's for sure.
No, you got a West Coast trip at Washington on Saturday, at Oregon the following, what is it, Tuesday? Some late night games, so brew an extra pot of coffee if you're gonna stay up and watch those. But yeah, I mean, gotta win those. Come home to play Nebraska, at Ohio State, at Minnesota. Try to get Iowa, on the back end of the home and home there, and then UCLA and at Maryland is done, and then that's the end of the regular season.
Yeah, it's not a murderer's row schedule, but there's a ton of it that's on the road for a Northwestern team, and we know, because not an insignificant part of this is because of horrific officiating, but Northwestern is 0-6 on the road right now.
Are we going to have to break out the how did the refs fuck us this time? Bit?
Well, we almost had to break it out against against USC, but
but one of the big things is the Brooks injury and the Leach injury, and again, we don't know the Leach injury, but it looked very bad. He walked off, but it looked like the kind of thing that is someone's not just going to bounce right back from. I would love to eat my words. I would love to be wrong. But those two injuries in particular kick Northwestern in the teeth in a very specific way, which in addition to Brooks' defense, which obviously Brooks is, that's the best two-way player in the Big Ten. So you're losing one of the Big Ten's best defensive players from, as Scott said, a team that really wants to try to do it with defense. And you look at the Wisconsin game, for example, and you had Barry and Leach really shooting the cover off the ball in that game from three, and we were still just annihilated by Wisconsin from the three ball, because it's basically like, we're not a team built to let another team rain threes on us. We just don't have an answer for that. This isn't that kind of basketball team. We're a team that wants to grind you down, play good defense, and then win with tough buckets, right? And with Barnhiser, you lose a big piece of that at both ends. But with Barnhiser out and with Leach out, and I think we're expecting him to be out. I don't know for how long, but
I mean, we're hoping. There hasn't been any official word I've seen,
right,
but still.
Right. Furious knocking of wood. But we are a team without a point guard who generates a point guard often using our most comfortable veteran players. And this is two of those guys. Those are two of the, as close to a de facto point guard as this team has. You could argue it's those two guys. And you could basically watch the roof cave in when Leach went out in the USC game. We were furiously being like, this clock just has to run all the way down. Because the second he went out of the game, Northwestern, first of all, the group of guys who were on the court clearly had no experience collectively playing together. Northwestern was just pushed into uncharted territory. And you had Smith out there, you had Mullins out there. But it was just a collection of guys where you could just see there was no guy comfortable bringing the ball up the court. There was no guy comfortable breaking a press. And there was no offensive system with the personnel that was out there. And again, I know Scuzz has some specific thoughts about this that are very valid. And at the same, and in addition to that, you have the fact that you could easily argue we lost two of our best players in the last 3 games, 2 of our 3 best players, and certainly arguably 2 of our most comfortable guys in terms of bringing the ball up the court. And it's that's a huge problem. And as long as Leach is out, it's basically, when we were talking at the end of the game, USC started pressing and then doubling, and it's kind of I would double us if I was an opposing coach, I would double us all game long. And on that last possession where Martinelli hit the amazing shot, I was thinking about this and I was like, it's kind of the disconnect between certainty and entrenched thinking, because I was basically like, USC knew Martinelli was shooting the ball at the end of that game. There was no way. We had nothing else going on other than Nick Martinelli doing Nick Martinelli things and finding a path to the basket. Northwestern had no path to the basket since Leach had come out in that game. And then USC's reaction was, well, let's double Martinelli. And I was like, you should be playing box and one, and the box should be around Nick Martinelli, because that ball's not leaving his hands.
Yeah, it was funny because they would send the double at him, and they were just leaving Blake Smith totally uncovered.
Right.
And
that's the thing. We're going to face a ton of that.
We are going to face a ton of that. But this leads me to I've been on this corner all year. In that scenario, you've got KJ Wyndham and Sheravino sitting on the bench. And I get it that you're trying to get your best 5 defensive players out there. And I get it, that's your hallmark, etc. But as is so often true in all these sports, not baseball, well, I guess maybe baseball, defense and offense are more intertwined than that, and you really sacrifice one side. I mean, you saw it on the final play with Sheravino out there. It created space. Nick Martinelli doesn't have the space. I mean, he got doubled still, but he doesn't have the space to get to split that double team and then get a shot off if you don't have Barry and Sheravino like spacing the floor as shooters. And Sheravino started, as he has done, the last several games, so that Ty Barry can come in afterwards, and played very, very few minutes. Wyndham has barely seen the floor in games. Justin Mullins was averaging, 14, 16, 18 minutes a game. Just the majority of January didn't play. He had a bad game against Michigan State, and then 3 minutes against IU, 5 against Illinois, 8 against Rutgers. Maybe something else was going on. Maybe the dude was sick. Yeah, I don't know. He had his best game of the year against USC, 4 of 5 from 3. I think about early in the season or even last year, getting that guy reps would pay dividends now. And there is just a real, Collins just really seems to insist on. I mean, I don't know the detail. I don't know what it is that's driving it one way or another. But I just don't love the personnel groupings that we get out there. Wyndham and Sheravino are both pretty decent with the ball in their hands. It just puts stress on the defense that doesn't allow them to collapse on Martinelli the way they do, and force turnovers with the press. And Mullins on the fast break in that Rutgers game, in the maybe I can't remember which game it was that you just felt like he was missing. I don't have enough specifics here lined up to lean on, but this is a theme. We've seen it happen season after season, and it's always a short bench, and I just feel like come February, March, it always hurts us because our starters, our top 5 guys are drained, they're gassed. And I get it that you can't give, the 12th guy on the team 20 minutes a game, but it feels like we're not even giving the 7th guy on the team 12 minutes a game. So I just there's it's an easy thing to critique, right? And to sit back and Monday morning quarterback on, but just feels like it's been a problem for a long, long time. And now without Brooks and presumably with an injured Leach, you're forced into it, and you're going to see these guys play. They're going to make mistakes, but they're also going to get better. And I just wish we could orchestrate some of the experience that we're going to gain in the next 6 weeks more purposely earlier in the season, earlier in guys' careers. I just think it would pay dividends.
Yeah, I mean, in Wyndham's case, and like sometimes like Wyndham has a little bit of street ball to his game, where you will see him kind of get caught in trying to break a guy down off the dribble and kind of create something a little bit. But you are talking about a guy who, and this is I think a big part of your point is KJ Wyndham's pretty comfortable with the basketball in his hands in a group of guys right now where there just are not many guys who fit that role.
Yeah.
It would be, you wish that in this situation when you really want to defer to him that there was a lot more seasoning on the dish that is KJ Wyndham right now, because at this point, you really want to just be like, look, we're going to need 35 minutes of you bringing the ball up the court because there's no one else to do it. I mean, you saw at the end of the USC game, it's Martinelli's doing it. And
what that also does though then is it completely takes Martinelli out of his game.
Right.
Because what he and Brooks would do is play this 2-man game down low to get position and ultimately take a shot from one of their sweet spots. And when he's sitting up in, north of the 3-point line because he brought the ball up and trying to figure out how he's going to, get it out of this double team. I mean, we were literally just playing for the hopefully Martinelli can draw a foul before he turns it over. That was the whole strategy in the last 3 minutes of that game, and that's preposterous. Like, that's not a winning. I mean, it's a strategy to hold on and to a game at the death there, but it's not a strategy going forward. You've got to figure out another way, and I get it that he's the one you trust the most, but you've taken him out of his game and his comfort zone in a way that almost, to me, puts that trust at risk.
Yeah, I think too, you also, and credit to him, I mean, Martinelli had one of his all-time great games because 10 offensive rebounds. He was just absolutely incandescent on the glass. But I think we can be fair and be like, Northwestern was phenomenal on the boards in this game, and also understand that hasn't been typical of Northwestern against top Big Ten competition this season. And that is not something that I would bank, especially with Brooks being out, that I would just bank on that continuing.
USC was missing their best player as well, right?
Right.
He's more of a shit. It's not like they were missing a big, but they're more of a team of wings, if you will.
Right.
With a fair amount. They were talking about AG needing to step out and take more threes with their big scorer out, and so I don't know that would have affected the offensive rebounding much, but that's not a team known for its size and rebounding prowess.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say going forward, I look at them like, look, I think what you have is, as long as Leach is out, if he is out, you are looking at a team without a seasoned true ball handler that's going to struggle to bring the ball up the court, and is also really figuring out its defensive rotations right now, and has had some real problems with 3-point defense over the past couple of games. And at the same time,
do we want to go there on the 3-point defense?
No. Well, I mean, I mean in a general sense. I mean, there was the one that was there was the one that was the bad call in the USC game for sure. But I mean, Wisconsin shot the lights out, and
Blake got unlucky on the first one, and then made an egregious mistake on the second one.
Yeah, and I mean, again, that's two. I mean, USC shot 9 of 18 from 3, so there was plenty to go around. It's like Northwestern's like that's a big problem. They got to figure this out. These are really big problems. I would press us 100% of the time, full court, every basketball game, if I was every other team on our schedule while we don't have Jalen Leach in the game. Because I'd be like, I don't know how Northwestern breaks that for a whole game. And on the flip side, we are a team that is nonetheless rolling out Nick Martinelli, Matthew Nicholson, and Ty Berry for every basketball game. And yes, we have lost some big-time guys, but you are talking about the heart and soul and character of a team that again and again and again either wins tough or takes the ball game to the place where we get screwed by the officials or we lose on a brutal last-second shot, right? But battling and taking the team right to the wire on heart and toughness and pedigree. And I think that's what you're going to see. Don't expect pretty basketball, at least as long as Leach is out. But at the same time, understand that we are not playing the creme de la creme of the conference over the next 5 or 6 games, and this team is going to battle and play really dogged defense, and we're going to be in some of these games. But yeah, I do not have a positive outlook overall, that's for sure. But at the same time, this team is not going to roll over. The team has too much heart and too much character for that, and I think you're going to see some great games.
Hey, prove us wrong.
Right.
You know,
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, trip out to the West Coast, and we'll see what let's see what happens.
Yeah, and again, we got Washington, Oregon. I mean, these are not powerhouse teams.
Washington's 2-9 in the conference. Oregon's 5-7.
Yeah. Well, look, like Martinelli's still third in the conference in scoring, and he's dipped off a bit of late. This most recent game, notwithstanding, when he put up 27.
And he knows it's his show now.
They were talking in the Collins was talking in the post game about like, I'm telling Nick, shoot more, take more shots, and there's that alpha dog mentality that he's he needs to just embrace 10% more, but at the same time, there's real benefit in Angelo Cherubino and KJ Wyndham and Justin Mullins being out on the floor and seeing what those guys can do, helping them grow, develop, experience, etc. If Ty is truly healthier now, his 3-point shooting has been much better. We'll see how we go forward, but there's good stuff to watch, and there's stuff to build on for this team as they go forward. And we talked so much about Boo when he said he was going to come back last year, and that being a bridge year to the next generation. We didn't realize that was going to result in a tourney run. But we're seeing, like, even if this year does not result in postseason glory, which it probably won't, we're seeing the fruits of that bridge year from Boo, in that the culture and the identity and the pedigree, as you said, John, of this team persists, and they have something to build on and an identity to build on as they go forward. They're not perfect. They're never going to be perfect, but they know who they are, and they're operating that way, and that's a huge deal.
Definitely. Shall we do a quick pivot into spring sports?
I just one last shout out for the hoops team, because I don't know that we've said his name all year. But
are you about to mention spirit animal Keenan Fitzmaurice?
You're damn right I am. 8 points in 9 minutes, 3 rebounds, 2 of 3 from the floor, and then 2 of 2 from the line. Like, this dude, like, he Hunger's been banged up, and Fitzmaurice has been getting a little bit more playing time, coming in as a third big. He's I think a grad transfer. This is his last year, and it's just awesome. And it's funny. I joked with you guys because one of the things that frustrates me to no end about Nicholson is, like, there's nobody better with the lob, but if he gets the ball under the hoop, he's very rarely able to get up and get it through the defense. They're hacking at him. They're knocking it out of his hands. I feel like Fitzsimmons has this grizzly bear strength when he's in a similar position.
By the way, you just said Fitzsimmons instead of Fitzmaurice, but the great I heard the great Dave Ennett do this exact same thing. So
then I won't feel bad about it. Fitzmaurice, my apologies. But his emotional presence on the court is so noticeable, and you can see the bench respond when he has a play. You can feel the crowd respond when he has a play, and it was just really, really fantastic to see and watch his impact on that game. And I think we'll continue to see more from him as the season goes on. But I just thought it was really worth calling out. Pirate booty, if you will.
Yeah.
for
there you go.
for
Absolutely.
Keenan Fitzmaurice.
100%. And a guy who just like the crowd loves him. He's so into it. He gives 100% all the time. Awesome on the bench, awesome on the court. Yeah, I love that guy.
If you or a loved one is seriously injured by someone else's negligence, hire Kent Simpson of the Simpson Law Group. After over a decade prosecuting murder cases in Chicago, Simpson opened his own firm focused on wrongful death and personal injury cases. He specializes in car, truck, motorcycle, boat, and other transportation accidents, as well as construction accidents, medical negligence, slip and falls, product liability, and more. Millions recovered for clients. No fee unless he wins. The Simpson Law Group. Compassion, empathy, and vigorous advocacy. Go to simpsonlawgroup.com or call 312-332-2107 for a free consultation. And go Cats. So let's talk a little bit, little softball, little lacrosse. We're going to, we did a lot of lacrosse talk last week, and, definitely excited for Izzy Skane night, 2/7, February 7th. Are they retiring her jersey? We don't know.
We'll find out. We'll find out. Hands on pins and needles.
Are they following Yan Yan Lee's command that they retire her jersey? We will see.
But we've also got softball to talk about, and we will get into them more probably next week as we get into it. But coming into the season, ranked number 18, Kansas Robinson, Kelsey Nader. You got the double Ks coming back, and just Emma Ray was Big Ten All-Freshman, just to remind everyone of some of these names. But I think the biggest name, I think, to remember is one who wasn't there last year but is back, and that's pitcher Lauren Boyd.
Right. That's right. I mean, there's obviously, like Sam was saying, like, we just haven't had the space in our schedule yet to do the full softball preview. It's coming. We're going to find a way to get it out to you. And obviously, by the time we get into it, I mean, Sam will get into the schedule, but we're going to have obviously a lot of meat on the bone to talk about because, man, is the season starting with a bang. But yeah, Lauren Boyd back on the bump. I mean, obviously, Northwestern has a lot of quality pitching experience coming back from last year. Again, we know the quality of the talent on this team. We know the quality all over the place. For this team. And yeah, I mean, this team has somehow went from Rudd to Ray in the catcher department, and then just like we somehow are set at catcher for just kingdom come on this team, which is phenomenal. But yeah, Kansas and Kelsey are both top 100 players in the nation by all the rankings that have been coming out. And I think I've seen different rankings that had one ranked above the other, but they are both very highly regarded players nationally in any ranking that you look at. And that doesn't include like all the exciting freshman talent that we're going to be seeing take the field and everyone else. I mean, like this is obviously your 3-time Big Ten champion, defending champion team. They're 18th in the nation, as Sam said. Like, there is a ton for us to get into. We're going to get into it. We just haven't had the time to devote fully to it yet. But by the time we get in, we're certainly going to know a lot about the way this team's going to start the year.
Yeah. So, softball, like I said, starts on Friday. If you're listening to it when it comes out.
It sure does.
you may have Kennesaw State at noon. They're down in Clearwater, Florida for the NFCA Leadoff Classic. Starting off against Kennesaw State at noon, and then just keep on playing. Replace Kennesaw State with number 15 Missouri at 3:00. Then on Saturday,
anything happening the next day?
Yeah, Saturday you got a doubleheader. Number 8 Duke, number 5 Tennessee, and then Sunday you got Southern Miss. That's your first weekend. 5 games, boom, 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 with 3 ranked teams in the top 15, and obviously the Cats sitting there at 18. The following weekend, the Purple and Gold Challenge in Baton Rouge. You got Virginia Tech, LSU, UT Arlington, LSU again, and UT Arlington again. And then we're getting on into the Mary Nutter Classic. We'll talk about all that as we get a little further. I'm not seeing any schools that I have never heard of before on here. So unlike last year, I don't even remember who it was, but it was, yeah. But yeah, real quick start to softball. And lest we forget the lacrosse schedule just right off the top, like I say, playing Notre Dame on Friday at 7 o'clock at Ryan Fieldhouse. Izzy Skane night. If you haven't gotten tickets, make it happen. Then Canisius on Sunday. Then the next weekend, Boston College and Niagara. Colorado coming in. I mean, and then Syracuse. It's wild. Just really wild start to both softball and lacrosse.
I was going to say, between this Friday and then the following Saturday, so basically an 8-day period, the amount of massive matchups between these two teams is insane. 5 top 15 teams, including, number 1 lacrosse team in the country, a top 5 softball matchup. And that's not even counting LSU, who somehow is not ranked in softball right now. So, I mean, it's absolute. And also credit, we talked about this with Coach Amonte Hiller, but credit to Coach Drohan for the scheduling that she is putting in front of this awesome softball team. She's done this for years now too. But this, the leadoff classic in Clearwater, like, this is a monster weekend. It is a huge softball bill. Sam listed all of these juggernaut teams that are there, and Coach Drohan has got Northwestern on the bill for that. And the Cats, it's the experience is just invaluable. It's the best of the best, trading blows right off the bat.
Lest we forget, baseball is also starting next week on Valentine's Day. They're heading out to Long Beach, California, to take on Long Beach State in a 3-game set. They play Indiana and Harvard in Cary, North Carolina, the following weekend, along with Fordham. And we'll hit baseball as we get into it. See how Jack Lausch does on the diamond. Obviously, that was where he really excelled in high school. So it'll be fun to see Lausch playing some baseball too. So
baseball is going to be fun to pay more attention to. I earlier talked about, hey, reach out to us, let us know if there's things you want us to cover. Baseball is probably the thing that we've heard most from folks over the years of like, hey, could you cover the baseball team? Could you talk a little bit more about the baseball team, et cetera? So we want to definitely do that a little bit this year. In addition to Jack, who like is an obviously easy storyline, and Mark is somebody that we're familiar with from the football team. Probably the biggest, I'll call question mark or / opportunity for this team is on the mound. Last year, Northwestern really struggled in pitching, and they turn over just about everybody. So on one hand, they lose a ton of experience. On the other hand, it wasn't that great of a battery, and they've got a bunch of new guys. So it's going to be probably a bit of a work in progress from the start of the year, but exciting nonetheless to see what comes out and see what comes through. So we'll certainly be tracking that as the baseball team gets started.
Did you know Craig Counsell's son is on the team? Cubs manager.
Oh man,
Jack Counsell, sophomore.
At the risk of being mean,
I don't know.
Jack Counsell
I don't know.
stand like his dad used to?
Knew exactly where you're going with that. Don't know.
I don't think our buddy Dan is listening to the pod, but many years ago, after a rain delay, I found my friend Dan and I found ourselves sitting very close to the field, and it had been a long day, and we've been drinking a lot. And Dan took great exception to the way that Craig Counsell stood in the batter's box, and definitely let him know about it. And it's etched into my brain. I'll never forget it. Oh my God.
Maybe now it'll all come full circle at a Westlot Pirates tailgate. We'll see.
Yeah. Wouldn't that be glorious?
Right.
It all ended with Craig Counsell walking up and being like, "No, you stand funny." be like, "I've been holding this in all these years."
Standing with an umbrella, imitating him, shouting, "You like that, Counsell? You like that?" Oh, God.
Gosh.
Oh, man.
Well,
good times.
On that note, the last thing that I will bring up tonight is a sport that as you know, is if you've listened to the pod for a long time, is near and dear to my heart because my wife Carly was a Northwestern saber fencer, All-America fencer. But there was an event this past Saturday at Firehouse Grill in Evanston to honor legendary Northwestern fencing coach Lori Schiller, who famously won 1,000 matches, 1,000 victories as Northwestern fencing coach. And the Schiller duels are now named in his honor. That was the event this past weekend that I believe Northwestern fencing swept, by the way. And they had an event to honor him. And a lot of former fencers went, including my wife, who spoke and gave just a lovely toast to Coach Schiller at the event. Current coach, fencing coach Zach Moss was there. Had the opportunity to talk with him. It was great to have a great conversation with another Northwestern sports head coach, particularly women's sports head coach that we haven't had a chance to talk with before. Great conversation. Also had a great conversation with fencing director of ops, A.G. Gomez-Shaw. Just great people, great to catch up on another sport. And at the same time, it was a lot of fencers from the 90s, from the 80s, just reliving the program that was built. And one of the things that we were talking about, one of the things that I was talking about when I had the chance to talk with former coach Schiller and current head coach Moss was we think about this. We've talked about this when we talked about lacrosse, and we've talked about field hockey. We talked about when we talk about how lacrosse is going to be hosting the NCAA tournament next spring and how big a deal that is that tournament is coming out to the Midwest because the entire power base for that sport is in the Northeast. And field hockey the same way, right? And that it truly is incredible the way that Northwestern has been able to make inroads so far geographically from where the power bases of these sports are. And fencing is still, but in the 1980s, could not have been more the exact same thing, right? And Coach Schiller, out of nothing, built a program in the middle of the Midwest when the entire power base for that sport is Ivy Leagues, is Northeast, and is selling top players to come to Northwestern and fence when all of their other opportunities would be in the Northeast and the standard power structure of the sport, and just how difficult that is. And now you can look at the powerhouse fencing team that Northwestern has year in and year out, where they're just stacked every single year. And you look at the success that field hockey has, you look at the success that lacrosse has, you look at the success that softball has, and you remember that was all built out of nothing from a geographic location that is not anywhere close to the power structure for any of these sports. This wouldn't have just happened if all of these phenomenal coaches would not have taken the steps to make all this stuff happen. And in the case of my wife, Carly, and this was another important point that a lot of people made relative to Coach Schiller, is in the 90s, saber, which is one of the three fencing disciplines, was not an official NCAA sport. And Coach Schiller, particularly with regard to my wife, who was one of the very first generation of NCAA women's fencing saber fencers, did a lot to promote this and a lot to make it happen and put in a lot of the legwork to get the official designation for this sport that paved the way for many other steps within this sport. Not the least was in 2008, none of these were Northwestern fencers, but at the Beijing Olympics, American women finished gold, silver, and bronze in saber, which was totally unprecedented. And those are the kind of things where you go back and you realize that there were a lot of people taking hard steps in the shadows to take the steps and build bridges and make things like that happen. So it was a really cool event to honor a legendary coach, Lori Schiller, but also to understand that there are so many powerhouse women's sports, particularly at Northwestern now, that these programs were built. They were built from the ground up, away from the power bases of these sports by special coaches who made it happen. And it's something that the athletic department should be unbelievably proud of.
Well put. Anything to mention before we get out of here?
What are you guys' plans for the big game, the Super Bowl? I hate it when people do that. I get why they don't want to get sued. We're not going to get sued.
You want to get sued?
I just don't know. Do we have an official rooting interest for the pod? I don't know, Sam. Who do you have a team picked out? I don't know. Like if there's any, I don't know if you have a lean one way or the other.
Fly, Eagles, fly.
I hate the Eagles. We are divided.
I know.
House divided this weekend.
It's funny because
So not only did I grow up hating Kansas City, but my mom's from Philly. So, kind of.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
I think it's funny when there were 8 teams left in the playoffs. The three of us, as well as our buddies, Gary Seegers and Chris Giannini, did kind of a poll of like ranking the order that we wanted these teams, like how, like in order of how much we wanted to see this team in the Super Bowl. And these 2 teams were at the bottom of just about everybody's list. This is not the teams that any of us really wanted to see, but whatever. I mean, I'd like to see a good game. There's definitely, I think on behalf of Sam, I'm like, I honestly, I really don't like either of these teams. I just am ever conscious of just how much Sam hates the Chiefs.
Yeah, and I don't really have any reason to cheer for Philly. I mean, just insofar as that they're not Kansas City.
Yeah. The one thing I did want to bring up about the game is, unfortunately, this is yet another year with no Northwestern players in the Super Bowl. It's been quite a run of that, and since Mike Kafka left the Chiefs coaching staff to go to New York, what was that, 4 years ago?
Well, Skoranek won a ring with the Rams, didn't he?
Oh, that's right. Skoranek did win a ring with the Rams, but it's been a while, right? So it's been, I guess, since 2022. Was that the 21 season, 22 Super Bowl?
I think that's right. Yeah,
with the Rams over the Bengals. So it's been 3 long years for us NU fans not seeing any cats in this game, but hopefully we'll rectify that in the years to come.
Well, if the Broncos go next year, you got Zach Strief as their O-line coach.
Yeah,
there you go.
Austin King is their offensive assistant O-line coach. So double little Northwestern action on the Broncos coaching staff.
I was gonna say our whole generation. It's amazing. We need to get Trey Essex back in there, back in the mix somewhere.
That guy is diehard Pittsburgh.
I was going to say
he wears black and yellow. He's not going to Denver.
Yeah, that's for sure. As long as we're talking Northwestern football, the final thought I'll add is Northwestern officially announced that we have a new running backs coach. So we know that Chris Foster had left, and we have now hired Aristotle Thompson from Cal. So first of all, obviously someone who has the ability to recruit. He recruited Jaden Ott, Cal's star running back. So the ability to recruit big-time players, obviously someone who has a lot of connections and relationships with the state of California, is fantastic. It's great to get just a new great coach with a great pedigree in here. And it is definitely not lost on us the fun that the Northwestern community is going to have with us hiring a coach named Aristotle. This is a community that is still getting mileage to this day off of Northwestern having a quarterback named Kafka.
We were kind of in the back of our minds thinking, would Kafka come back to, be OC for the Cats or maybe even head coach? And instead of one old philosopher, we got another.
Yeah, I was going to say a Kafka-Aristotle conversation. Again, these are not things that would make ripples at other universities, but at our proud university, they definitely do. And we're very proud of this. This is obviously something that we're very proud of. We're proud that people have these discussions and crack these kind of jokes. It's a big part of what makes Northwestern. But it is very cool, nonetheless, that Aristotle Thompson has joined the Northwestern coaching staff.
Just once again, guys, congratulations on 600 episodes. Thanks again for everyone who's joined us along the way. We'll go ahead and leave it there for tonight. Head to our website, westlawpirates.com, where you can leave comments and questions. Find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, and all of social media at Westlaw Pirates. Watch our videos on YouTube. And you can always email the show, westlawpirates@gmail.com. Tune in next time as we give our visceral and statistical views on Northwestern athletics, and look for us in the west lot of Ryan Field flying the red pirate flag, because we give no quarter, especially the fourth. For John Lacombe and Eric Skasboy, I'm Sam Walter. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you next time.